Thank you very much, Your Excellency, dear colleagues. I'm glad to have been invited to participate in this summit and to meet with colleagues from Europe and around the world. We have a lot to share and we have a lot to learn from each other in this important topic. The question for today is, what can we cities do? What can we as city leaders do to tackle the refugees crisis? We cannot negotiate a peace agreement in Syria. We cannot send peacekeeping troops or development aid into conflicts in different countries. You could ask, isn't this really a job for states and government leaders? I will argue today that we as cities have a key role to play in several ways. First, we are the forefront on combating climate change. War has forced many people to leave their homes and flee into an uncertain life. But war is not the only reason why people becoming refugees. Climate change is increasingly also a reason. More than 21 million people are displaced every year because of this. We need to act, and we need to act now as city leaders to prevent a humanitarian crisis that soon will be almost impossible to handle. Most of the world's CO2 emissions comes from cities, a total of 70%. So as city leaders, we must accept that it is our problem and that we can do something about it. We can lead the way in the green transformation of our cities because we deal with traffic planning, energy generation, heating and waste disposal, which are areas that are vital in the fight against climate change. I'm proud to be here today and tell you that in Copenhagen we have reduced CO2 emissions by 50% since 1995 until 2014, 50%. So we must work together and share solutions across borders and cities like we do today and like we do in other global city networks such as C40. Indeed, sharing knowledge is the second most important thing we can do, especially with cities in need. In Copenhagen, we have established a partnership with Beirut, a city that is carrying a heavy burden because of refugees from Palestine and Syria. With the partnership, we help Beirut deal with concrete problems in 4 areas: waste to energy, waste management, building community resilience to counter violent extremism, urban planning and public transport, and lastly, e-government. This partnership is a great example on how we as cities can help each other, building strong and more coherent societies that are fit for dealing with global challenges such as refugees crisis. The last but most important task is integration of refugees who arrive our cities. Right now, Europe is faced with one of the most severe crises in history. At the end of 2015, more than 1 million refugees had come to Europe. Our reaction to this challenge as cities is very, very important because there is a risk that receiving refugees can lead to division and to conflict and hatred in our societies. Indeed, we have already seen signs of this across Europe. Unfortunately, in many cities in Europe, it has historically been our poorest and most vulnerable citizens who are carried the heaviest burden because refugees and immigrants have been placed in housing projects that have already struggled with unemployment, poverty and crime. This has made integration into society very difficult. We must not repeat this mistake. We also have a housing shortage in Copenhagen as many other cities. Many people are signed up on waiting list for public housing, some of them with small incomes and social problems. It must not be them, our most vulnerable citizens, who pay the price by waiting even longer for a place to live. In Copenhagen, we set 3 main goals for housing the refugees. 1, the refugees should not live in temporary housing for more than 6 months. 2, the permanent housing should be spread around the city. And 3rd, waiting list for public housing must not grow because of refugees. To reach these 3 goals, we made an agreement with the public housing organizations so that for each refugee we assign public housing. We support constructing a new housing in equal scale. We call it the 1-to-1 model. I'm proud of this solution, and I can only encourage other cities to work together with all good forces to find positive and sustainable solutions. Because if we want to succeed in tackling the refugee crisis, we need strong political leadership, and we need to share good ideas and learn from each other city to city. So I look forward to be inspired by this exciting presentations here at this summit. So once again, thank you very much for hosting us in these beautiful and historical surroundings here in Rome. Thank you very much for your attention.